we're going to be talking about how to automate off of VMware with the VMware migrations. Basically, I want to explain the business value of the Mirantis OpenStack solution. And realistically, there's a couple of different aspects that I want to talk to about. And that's not just the customer experience, because that is very important, but we also provide the time to market, the agility, the flexibility, and how you can basically increase your operational efficiency. So really now what I want to talk about is the deployment options for each specific use case. And what we're looking at here is, depending upon what your use case is, we do have the supported cloud configuration and how we would address each of these. So just looking at and spending time with customers such as yourself, and depending upon your requirements and your use case, we would come and design the cloud specifically to you. And then we would have this supported cloud configurations.
I'm going to take you through where Trilio comes into this puzzle of moving from VMware into Mirantis OpenStack. What Trilio for VMware to Mirantis OpenStack is a specific solution designed for admins to essentially pull in the workloads from VMware. It is directly integrated into the experience of OpenStack. So if you're familiar with OpenStack and you're familiar with the Horizon interface, you'll find us directly integrated into that experience. So how do we do this? So I've used the word mapping quite a lot. So that mapping for us basically allows us to describe something from a VMware land and moving them into an OpenStack land. You know, the terminology is different, but the technology is pretty similar. To do that, we have these things called a migration plan. So what happens in a migration plan is you identify the sets of virtual machines or the grouping of virtual machines that you want to assign to a particular tenant. A tenant can have multiple migration plans. A migration plan might describe a cluster of virtual machines associated with a particular service. It might be a web service layer. It could be a SQL Server layer running on Windows VMs. Or it could be a mixture of two, because you might want to leave services up on VMware, for example, for the duration of the migration. So there's a lot of ways you can group these virtual machines to bring over into the world of OpenStack. But that grouping for us is known as a migration plan. You know, Michael talked around the world of Mirantis OpenStack and all the advantages you get around running Kubernetes-based control plane and all the services you get attached with Mirantis OpenStack. But with Trilio, we don't just stop at the migration phase. Of course, we're fully integrated into Mirantis OpenStack. So Trilio for Mirantis OpenStack, it's a dedicated service. It's an actual OpenStack service. Everything in OpenStack is essentially an individual service. So that service really does one job. The exception is kind of like Keystone, which kind of like does two, but everybody just sees that as identity or authentication. Nova manages compute, Neutron does the networking, Cinder does the storage. Well, Trilio does the backup and recovery. So we're not some alien kind of like third-party tool again, which, you know, sits at the side, says, oh yeah, I know how to do OpenStack because I can understand APIs. We're actually part of OpenStack itself. You know, you install us as part of Mirantis OpenStack. You will see us in the endpoint list. You know, if you're a user and did an OpenStack catalog list, you'll see the fact that there are endpoints and there's a Trilio endpoint and service that are running in there. So basically, you add us to the cloud, and basically we just get lit up as a brand new service.